Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? We're going deep on robots AI and the possibility that they might be echoes of our past and glimpses into our future.
I think we all have this fascination with robots and AI.
And especially the idea of uploading consciousness to a computer, which is something you're really interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
It's kind of like we're living in a sci-fi movie, but maybe these movies are more like documentaries of a forgotten history.
Right. Okay, so where do we even start with this?
Oh, I think it's fascinating that the idea of artificial beings and advanced technology, it goes way back, like way, way back.
Like ancient myths.
Exactly. The ancient Greeks had Talos, this giant bronze automaton guarding Crete.
It's true. And what about Pandora? She wasn't just a pretty face, right? She was an artificial being created by the gods.
Right.
So it's like ancient Greece was already exploring the ethics of AI, the consequences of creating something that could think for itself.
Absolutely. And these myths often hint at lost civilizations with knowledge we can only dream of.
Okay, so we've got these ancient myths, and then we have actual artifacts, like the Antikythera mechanism.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
This ancient Greek device was basically an analog computer centuries ahead of its time.
It makes you wonder what else is out there buried, just waiting to be discovered.
Totally. And don't forget the Vimanas.
Oh, yes, those flying machines described in ancient Indian texts.
With intricate details suggesting advanced engineering and maybe even automation. It really challenges what we think we know about ancient cultures.
It does. It's like what we see as magic in these old stories could actually be advanced tech that we just don't understand yet.
Which makes those sci-fi movies you sent over even more interesting.
Right.
It's like they're tapping into this collective memory, exploring what happens when humans create beings that could be even smarter than us.
Well, and there's so many great examples.
Like Metropolis, Prometheus, AI, artificial intelligence.
All grappling with those big questions about AI.
Yeah, let's start with Metropolis. I mean, it's a pretty bleak vision of the future.
All right, a society divided by technology.
With the wealthy elite living in luxury while the working class toils below.
It's a cautionary tale about the responsibility that comes with progress.
For sure. And then you have Prometheus, which takes this creator-creation dynamic to a whole other level.
Yes. We have these engineers who may have engineered life on Earth, and then humans create androids.
It's like a never-ending cycle with each generation potentially rebelling against its creators.
And it makes you wonder, how would AI view us, their creators?
Right. Would they want independence or would they challenge our authority?
Big questions.
Then there's AI, artificial intelligence, which explores AI and emotions.
David, that android child longing for love and acceptance.
It really makes you think, are we ready to deal with the implications of creating beings that can feel?
Especially if they can suffer.
Right. And then there's the Matrix.
Oh, wow.
Which throws a whole other wrench into things. What if we're already living in a simulation?
It's a mind-blowing concept, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it connects directly to your interest in uploading consciousness to a computer.
It really does.
What if our reality is just a sophisticated program?
And if it is, who created it and why?
Okay, I admit the Matrix really messed with my head for a while.
I bet.
But seriously, if consciousness can be uploaded and simulated, then the lines between reality and simulation get super blurry.
And that idea that we could be living in a simulation has become more and more popular.
Especially with all the advancements in quantum computing.
It's true.
Which brings us to your theory about cloning.
Nice.
You suggested that the wealthy elite might already be using cloning to cheat death.
Transferring their consciousness into new bodies.
It's a fascinating and slightly terrifying idea.
I think it's rooted in a certain logic. We know the ultra-wealthy are investing in anti-aging therapies, cryonics.
So it's not a huge leap to think they'd be interested in cloning and consciousness transfer.
Right, especially if they think it could make them immortal.
So essentially they could be creating copies of themselves.
Potentially downloading their memories and personalities.
Wow. It's like a high-stakes game of genetic roulette.
The implications are pretty huge.
Yeah, imagine a world where the rich can live forever, accumulating more wealth and power.
It would create a level of inequality that we can barely even imagine.
It's a dystopian scenario that feels a little too close for comfort.
Definitely.
But even if the technology exists, there are so many unanswered questions. How do you transfer consciousness? What happens to the original? Does the copy have the same rights?
It's uncharted territory.
And that's where quantum computing comes in.
Exactly.
The processing power needed to map and simulate a human consciousness is unbelievable.
We're talking massive amounts of data.
It might be impossible for regular computers, but maybe not for quantum computers.
That's the hope.
So you're saying quantum computers could be the key to both cloning and consciousness uploading?
They could be powerful enough to create incredibly detailed simulations of human minds.
Maybe even virtual worlds for those minds to live in.
The possibilities are truly mind-blowing.
But it also makes you wonder who will control this technology.
And how will they use it? You know, it's funny you were just saying how quantum computers could create virtual worlds for uploaded consciousnesses.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you think about the whole simulation theory again.
Right. What if our reality is just a super advanced simulation running on a quantum computer?
It really makes you question the whole idea of free will.
Exactly. Are we really making choices, or are we just following a program?
That's a question philosophers have been debating forever.
But it's definitely more trippy if we're living in someone else's program.
Yeah, no kidding. It makes you wonder about all those weird glitches we experience, like deja vu, or those crazy coincidences, or those super vivid dreams.
Right. Maybe those are cracks in the simulation.
That tends to something else is going on.
Maybe. Okay, let's shift gears for a minute and forget about the simulation theory for now.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the practical stuff. What happens to society if all this technology actually becomes real?
Cloning consciousness, uploading quantum computing.
It seems like a complete game changer.
Absolutely. It would transform everything.
From how we live to how we die.
Even our understanding of what it means to be human.
Do you think we'd be ready for that kind of change?
That's a great question. And there are no easy answers.
It's both exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It is. But we can at least try to anticipate the problems and figure out how to use these technologies responsibly.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Right.
What are the worst case scenarios? Because this is starting to feel a little like Black Mirror.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, one big concern is the potential for an immortality gap.
The idea that only rich people could afford to live forever.
Exactly. And that would create a permanent overclass ruling over everyone else.
It would be like a dystopian nightmare.
And what if governments or corporations controlled consciousness uploading?
That's even scarier.
They could have total control over people's minds.
Like a digital dictatorship.
That's a chilling thought.
Okay.
Another concern is what happens to our humanity.
If we can upload our minds live in virtual worlds, does that change what it means to be human?
Do we lose our connection to our physical selves?
It's almost like we could become these digital ghosts.
Detached from the real world?
It's a lot to think about. Okay, so we've talked about the downsides.
The potential risks.
But what about the upsides? What could a future with this technology look like if we do it right?
Well, imagine a world without disease or aging.
Where we could live much longer.
And explore the universe without our physical limitations.
Connect with other minds across vast distances.
And push the boundaries of knowledge and creativity in ways we can't even imagine right now.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. It's like a whole new era of human evolution.
Transcending our limitations.
But even with the best intentions, how do we make sure this technology is used for good?
That's the real challenge, isn't it?
It seems like we need to evolve ethically and socially to keep up with the technology.
Absolutely. We need guidelines, safeguards.
To prevent misuse and protect people's freedom.
It's going to require open dialogue collaboration between everyone involved.
Scientists, ethicists, policymakers, everyday people.
We need to work together to create a future where this technology benefits everyone.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
A pivotal moment in history.
The choices we make now will shape the world for generations to come.
And it's up to all of us to make sure we choose wisely.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
From ancient robots to simulated realities to consciousness itself.
But there's one more piece of your original question we need to address.
Oh, right.
You were especially interested in the implications of consciousness uploading.
Yes.
We've talked about it a bit, but let's go a little deeper. The thing that really fascinates me is how it could change what it means to die.
Right.
If we can upload our minds to a computer, does death become optional?
It really challenges our understanding of mortality.
Do we just keep creating backups of ourselves and reboot if something goes wrong?
If consciousness can exist outside the body, then death as we know it might not even exist anymore.
But even if we achieve digital immortality, wouldn't that create a whole new set of existential problems?
What do you mean?
Well, what's the point of living if there's no end? What happens to our sense of purpose if we know we have unlimited time?
Those are big questions.
And they're questions that philosophers have been asking forever.
Long before we ever imagined computers or mind uploading.
But wouldn't digital immortality make those questions even more intense?
I think so.
Imagine living for thousands or even millions of years.
Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your head around that.
Would we run out of things to learn or experiences to have?
Would we get bored?
Or would existence itself just become meaningless?
I think it's a real possibility.
It's like, be careful what you wish for. Immortality might sound great, but the reality could be a lot more complicated.
Yeah, maybe even a little bleak.
What do you think? I guess the whole idea of immortality, whether it's through cloning or uploading our minds.
It brings up some serious existential questions.
Yeah, it's not just about living longer. It's about finding meaning in a life that could go on forever.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Technology doesn't solve those big questions about life and death.
If anything, it makes them even more complicated.
I think so.
So if we do figure out how to upload our minds...
It sounds like we'll need a philosophical upgrade, too.
Right. We'll have to rethink what it means to be human in a world where death isn't a given.
And there are so many ethical questions to consider.
Like, how do we make sure everyone has access to this technology, not just the wealthy?
And how do we protect individual freedom in a world where minds can be copied and manipulated?
It feels like we're entering this whole new era of human evolution.
Where the line between biology and technology is getting blurrier and blurrier.
And we need to start having these conversations now before it's too late.
Absolutely. We need to be proactive. Think ahead about the implications.
Okay, let's circle back to that theory you mentioned.
About the wealthy elite using cloning.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of a conspiracy theory.
It does.
But it's not totally crazy when you think about it.
Right. These billionaires are pouring money into longevity research.
They want to live longer, and they have the resources to make it happen.
Exactly. So it's not a stretch to imagine them exploring cloning and mind uploading.
So, are you saying there could be secret labs out there creating copies of billionaires?
Downloading their memories into new bodies.
Like a real-life sci-fi thriller?
It might sound far-fetched, but it's a possibility we need to consider.
Because what happens if it's true? What happens if immortality is only for the rich?
It would create a massive divide.
Like a world ruled by immortal elites.
And the rest of us are just left behind.
It's a terrifying thought.
It is. And it's why it's so important to make sure these technologies are used ethically.
Right. Immortality or life extension shouldn't just be a privilege for the wealthy.
It should benefit everyone.
Okay, well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
From ancient robots to simulated realities to the future of consciousness.
It's been quite a journey.
A real deep dive into some mind-blowing possibilities.
Some pretty big challenges, too.
But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To explore these ideas and hopefully spark some conversations.
Exactly, because these are conversations we all need to be having.
So keep those brains buzzing, keep asking questions, and keep exploring.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Until then.